Hey, we want to welcome you to the latest episode of the 938 podcast. We are here today with Nathan Burch, pastor of Aurora Baptist Temple in Aurora, Missouri. We're excited to have him with us today. And my name is Craig Stevenson. I'm an associate mission director here with the PBFI Mission Office. And I want to encourage you, as we're getting started, to go click subscribe and then like and share this video. And as we're trying to build this audience for the 938 podcast, going through this year, counting down the days really till October 3rd, which is our 938 Sunday. And so you're going to hear more about that in the coming weeks as we start talking even more about Project 938 than we have even leading up to this point. But we have Pastor Nathan Burch with us today. So Nathan, good to have you, man.
Hey, glad to be here, Craig. It's an honor to be a part of 938.
Yeah, well, obviously you were here with us last week for the fellowship week,
That's right.
Fellowship meeting, and we had our missions morning. So we're going to dive into all of that. We're going to talk about kind of reactions and responses to some of the things that we had going on. But for people that don't know you, take just a second and tell everybody a little about yourself.
Okay, well, I grew up in Springfield, and my father was a pastor here in town for 35 years at a couple churches. And so growing up in a pastor's home, you know, we came to fellowship week. We heard Jerry Thorpe and, you know, all the different guys come in. We had missionaries in all the time. And so Dad's churches were sending churches also. So we had missionaries that came out. And so when I graduated high school, came to Baptist Bible College, got my degree in pastoral studies.
Okay.
I was already youth pastor at Graceway here in town under Bob Stevenson, and worked for him for about 10 years.
Cool.
Then Aurora Baptist Temple had an opening for pastorate. Sent my resume. Still don't know why they called me. Not ready. But God was in it. God was in it. And so I've been there 11 and a half years now.
Really? It's been that long?
Yes.
Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun. And
so. No, that's awesome. You know, one of the things I love about you, and Bob and I were talking last week, and you and I and Bob have all talked about this, but it's just really cool to see the relationship between you and Bob Stevenson. Obviously, you worked with, how long were you at Graceway?
Well, 29 years. I grew up my dad hired Pastor Bob as his associate, because you remember it used to be Del Prado Baptist, like back in the day. And then we relocated and changed the name because obviously we weren't. That name came from the neighborhood next door that was called Del Prado Hills. Okay. And what's funny is that's a Spanish name for the garden or something. And we actually had a Spanish family come visit the church because they thought it was a Spanish church.
Oh, really?
And they ended up staying.
The name of it.
Because the name,
that's awesome. Yeah.
So Frank and Nola were who it was. And I remember she always did the Bible school kitchen. Yeah. And she made a little pint of lemonade go a mile. It tasted like yellow water. Like they called it Nolade.
Nice.
Because it was awful.
Because it was bad.
It was bad,
No, I get that.
But she was saving money. And so when we relocated to the new property in 05, I think, 03, whatever, then we changed the name. And, of course, Pastor Bob was the pastor at that time. And, I worked for him for 10 years before I was moved to Aurora.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the relationship you guys have. And I hear you say it all the time, y'all are best friends. Y'all are great friends.
Yeah, we're best friends in ministry. Yeah. And I know not everybody has had the blessing of connecting with their pastor. Sure. But at the time, our church was going through every church goes through seasons, right? Sure. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really bad. Sure. And we lost some staff members, and it just came down to me and Pastor Bob. Yeah. And, money wasn't great at the time for the church. And we just hunkered down in the trenches and served together, and just that relationship was built. And our churches are very close. Yeah. Even through he and I, our people know each other.
Well, and anytime you guys are at a meeting or whatever, if I need to find you, I talk to him.
That's
if I
right.
need to find him, I talk to you, and we can find each other through that. And so it's just really cool to see that. It's great to see ministry relationships from people that have worked together now.
I say this, like, we need you in ministry. You've got to have that David and Jonathan. You need some, and I have other people that are close to me too. Pastor Bob just happens to be 35 minutes away.
Yeah, sure.
So we can get lunch. We can, we got a problem with the board or an idea in the church. We meet in Republic and we just
talk through it.
Talk through it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. So one of the things you just said, obviously your dad was a pastor here in town, and you said you had missionaries always come through your church. And so walk me through, just as a kid growing up in churches like that, what was it like for you to have missionaries come through the churches? And here's why I ask, because there's a lot of mission organizations that people evaluate. Do I need to go BBFI, or should I go with this, or should I go with that? And sometimes people say, well, I want to go because they'll pay my salary, and I don't have to do deputation and that kind of stuff. Sure. And for me, I just kind of cringe when I hear that, because if we don't have the missionaries going into the churches, what kind of impact would that have on not just a church, but also the overall missions program of the PBFI in general? So just always intrigued to hear stories. So, was there a missionary that really stood out to you that came through, or just in general, what was it like for you as a kid, teenager, having missionaries come through and visit your churches?
So, since we're being honest, I mean, even back in the 80s when they had the little push button slide, I always hated it when a missionary came, because it was just long. Yeah. But I got to admit, like, times are so much different. Our missionaries are so much more equipped. Yeah. So much more professional. So much, the training is better. And I'm not knocking the past. I'm just saying that our movement has adapted over time. And that probably wasn't always the case in our movement. Okay. And so our missionaries are coming out and, their videos and their stories. So it's a different world. Yeah, sure. If I was to just think of a missionary that came through back in the day, man, on the spot, I'm just trying to remember. Jim and Becky Carter, Alaska. Yeah. They came through, and they were talking about how they had to actually get on boat to go have church to the islands. Because when you think Alaska, you think they're just up there with the Eskimos. Yeah,
but that's not quite the case.
That's not the case with them. They're on the coast down where all those islands are, and they're going to these people groups by boat. Cool. And I remember we raised funds, it was under my dad, that's how long ago it was, to help them get a boat. Wow. And I remember that as a teenager. I always thought that was unique. But
what's cool about that, and look, we were on deputation, our family. So my dad used to use the slide projectors and all that kind of stuff. And then the projectors that you would get and go set up in the church, before a lot of churches and things had screens and video capabilities and things in them. But one of the things I love about what you just said is, as a teenager or whenever that was, you remember a story. Sure. From a missionary that you heard, and it made at least an impact enough for you to remember it today. And as you were talking, I thought about one more. Yeah. I went to, and man, I'm showing my age again, Cherry Mountain Youth Camp, Cherry Street's old camp. Yeah. I took our kids campers to Cherry Mountain, and I was probably 18, 19. I was just going as a counselor, and I met Jim Eberhard in the pool. Wow. And so he was planning to go out. Yeah. At that time, he was the children's pastor at Cherry Street forever. Right. And we were just talking. Yeah. And so here's this guy, Jim's probably in his, say, late 30s, early 40s, and just making this ministry change, and just in talking with him and different things. And Jim and I have become friends over there. We supported Jim, I think, from the beginning. But that's another story that just popped up in my mind. I love that. I had the privilege last year, not this year, but last year, to come and be part of y'all's conference. That's right. There, and got to go and do a breakout session. And one thing I love about your church is just the heart for missions and missionaries. Yeah. Just talking with people, and that comes from leadership from a pastoral position, leading a church to be involved in missions. And so for that, from a mission office standpoint, I just want to say thank you for your heart for missions, and then also leading your church down that path as well, because it's very obvious that you guys have a heart for missions. So I learned something a long time ago, and I've not been a pastor very long. I'm just now 41, but the people will develop the heart for what the pastor has a heart for. That's true. I think I said that right. Yeah. So if it's missions, they're going to develop a heart for missions. Right. If it's a local food bank or maybe a pregnancy care center ministry, we have those, but really our church, the focal point is local country and
worldwide missions.
Yeah.
Make it a big deal.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's kind of transition into last week. So,
Okay.
Last week, Fellowship Week. First of all, it was a great week. I just want to give a shout out real fast to the BBC crew because Mark, Nate, your team, y'all did a fantastic job at Fellowship Week putting the week together. I know your team, Chris Williams and his team, just making sure all the logistics and all that kind of stuff were done and done well.
It's not easy, man.
And everything's put together for an entire week of people coming in. So first off, I'm looking at the camera now because I want to say Mark and Nate, thank you, Chris Williams. And I could go on and on. The guys that did the sound and video and everything for all week long. Just really appreciate all those guys putting that week together for the fellowship. And then this was the 70th anniversary of the first graduating class for BBC. So what a cool kind of experience.
I was in college at the 50th.
Okay, so you're really showing your age now.
Oh, bad. Leland Kennedy up on stage crying, just celebrating all those. I remember they brought back all the guys that were still alive at the time. Yeah, I'm sure. Thanks, Craig. I'm sure.
You're welcome. Hey, you're older than I am, so I can say that. So that's good.
Cutting deep, man.
Yeah, I know, right? So, you go through Fellowship Week, and it's always it's a fun and exciting week. But there's a lot of things that go on kind of behind the scenes that people don't always know about. And you've been involved with some of that behind the scenes stuff. I mean, we have executive leadership meetings on Mondays with state reps and things like that. And then we have our missionary approvals here at the mission office on Tuesday afternoons, and we walk through that process with all the field reps. And then we get to Wednesday morning, right? And Wednesday morning is my favorite, probably one of my favorite days of the year, just in general, because I love going to our fellowship meetings and then being involved with our missions morning. We have 2 hours basically to focus on missions. And so for the next few minutes, let's just kind of unpack that just a little bit, right? So, because some people may not have had a chance to come, some may have had a chance to come, but it'd be good to kind of recap that for them a little bit. And so let's just kind of unpack that just a little bit. So what are some of the things that stood out to you as we kind of progress through that missions morning?
So I think the missions office does, Craig, yourself, John, Steve, Brian, everybody, a phenomenal job of bringing missions to the pastors. See, being so close to Springfield in the proximity, being a field rep, being a part of the state reps, I'm immersed in it. Yeah. Just my proximity to Springfield.
Sure.
You got an idea for missions, you call me, we go to lunch.
Yeah.
But the pastor in Montana, right? Dave Class, he doesn't have that. Yeah. Right? He has the he can go to the website and gets the letters and stuff. So when he comes to Fellowship Week, I mean, he gets to experience it like just an anointing, right? Like it pours out. I don't know if that's the right word, but so to those pastors and to those staff members that don't have the proximity to Springfield, that's a big deal.
Cool.
And so watching the different ideas the missions office has, whether it's Project 938 or, I remember you had that window, right? I can't remember what you had the latitude or the longitude window that you had a couple of years ago. I can't remember the name of it. It's escaping me. But there's always something you guys are introducing that's fresh, that's ideal, that's current, and it just shows that the missions office staff here has their head in the game and their finger on the pulse. Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about more, and I'll let you lead the questions. But Missions Day Wednesday is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite.
Well,
too.
We appreciate the encouragement for sure.
Yeah.
I think you hit the heart of what we try to do at the mission office for our pastors and churches. And look, if you're just joining us, I want to encourage you. First off, we have Nathan Burch, pastor of Aurora Baptist Temple, here with us today in Aurora, Missouri, and introduce him to you if you're just joining us. But also want to say thanks for jumping on. Click subscribe, like and share the video, and that will just help us build this audience as we're talking to missionaries and talking about all things BBFI missions here every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock Central Time here in the U.S. But going back to missions morning, so I walked through that day. First off, we had the opportunity to hear from Jonathan Williams at Graceway. So I want to give you a chance because obviously you have a great relationship with Graceway. You know them. So
John's my friend.
Yeah, he's your friend. Yeah. And so give a shout out to him because the song that he did was a really important song for us this year. It's Project 938, and it's kind of an unofficial kind of theme song, I guess you could say, for us this year through this process. And John and his team just absolutely did an incredible job. Now, this is a Getty's song, "Facing the Task Unfinished." And so, if you're watching this and you want to go listen to it, go Google the Gettys, "Facing the Task Unfinished." Go to YouTube, check it out. They have videos and things. I want to encourage you to go do that. But just talk about Jonathan, because number one, he's talented. Oh my goodness!
They call him the golden child at Graceway.
Yeah, nice.
Those other
That's
staff
awesome.
members, they know that here's Pastor Bob, here's Jonathan, and they're just down here.
Oh
right?
wow, that's hilarious.
So funny story about Jonathan.
Okay.
When he was on the mission field, they were in our missions conference, and one thing Jonathan needed was a guitar. So I can't remember if it was a 12-string, 6-string, but the guitars are pricey if you get the right kind. And so we raised the money and bought him the guitar.
Very cool.
Now, I don't know if that's the same guitar he's using, but after he was hired at Graceway, about 6-8 months, I sent him a text message, and I said, "Hey, man, I know you came back off the field for your boy's health and stuff, but we're going to need that guitar back."
Yeah, sure.
And there was a pause, and he's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Dude, I'm just kidding."
That's awesome. That's hilarious.
So to this day, I'll see him and be like, "Where's my guitar?"
Hey, where's your guitar?
Yeah, but I love John.
Yeah.
We were when we all were in college. We were at Graceway together, and just think the world of him and Kim.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, they have done a great job, obviously, on the mission field there at Graceway. Just thankful for him to come and lead that opening song as we really kick off.
That was neat to bring in other local worship leaders.
Oh yeah,
it was good.
For the whole week. That was great. We kind of progressed from there and got to honor somebody very special in the mission office, Debbie Schmachtenberger. We jokingly say she's the one that knows where all the bodies are buried around here. I mean, she's the one that knows things that
I noticed when I pulled in, everybody else has their last name on the parking spots.
She has her first name.
She has Debbie.
Debbie,
yeah,
that's right.
I get that.
Yes.
So
it was just great to be able to honor her. She's retired after 45 years here. And obviously, we did a podcast with her. Brother Connor actually interviewed her in a podcast. So
that's neat.
If you haven't seen that yet, I want to encourage you to go back a few episodes and watch that. But then we got into a really, really cool moment where we got to honor 6 missionary families for 50 years of service on the mission field. I mean, 50 years. So I knew it was coming. We obviously being part of the team that puts this whole service together. What was it like for you sitting there in the audience and seeing these missionary families and couples and honored for 50 years of service?
So even before they're introduced, okay, knowing that I've been a part of the fellowship for a long time, I know what those globes represent.
Yeah.
So I show up, the worship's going, whatever. Of course, I was on time, like every day.
On time, that's good.
Every time.
Yeah, you're never late.
Never late.
Yeah.
But you see those globes up there.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of when Israel was called to bring stones across the Jordan River as a reminder of what they went through as they crossed, and then they made a memorial.
That's right.
It just reminds me of those globes mean so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know who they were going to be given to, but that signifies just a historic run for somebody in the BBFI family.
Yeah, that's
it's a
cool.
huge deal.
Yeah.
Maybe not to a college student or to a teenager in a youth group, but to a pastor who happens to be a sitting pastor. I see that, and to know that we were getting the opportunity to honor not just one, but I think 4 or 5, whatever, 6.
Yeah, we had 6.
I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah, it's really cool when we walk in after the stage is set up and we see those globes set up, and then as people start to come in and they recognize that that's a very visual representation that, hey, something cool is fixing to go down here. And so it was really great to see. I mean, we had the Barnes, the Lingos. I mean, we could go through and talk the Lees in Mexico, and we could talk through all of them, but we don't really have time today. But it's just really cool to see families that have given their lives to go to the mission field, and good days, bad days, exciting things, challenging things across the board. Trust God and stay in the game.
And it was personal for me because literally the Sunday before missions, before fellowship week, we honored Phyllis Sturwalt. Yeah. And that, if you don't know who that is, that's a missionary out of our church, 42 years on the field to Kenya, Randy and Phyllis. And the only reason that Phyllis is back and in retired state is Randy got sick.
Yeah.
I was talking to Brother Connor up, and he said the number of churches planted under Randy's ministry is up to like 700
Yeah,
now.
that is just incredible.
And you
to think about.
and you don't know that because Randy's not the guy that broadcasts that.
Yeah.
they just want to be on the mission field and help the Kenyan people.
That's
so
right.
to know that there's other Randy and Phyllis Sturwalds out there,
absolutely,
it's a big deal for me in a personal level too.
Well, and I think through these missionaries, very unassuming, no one would know how much they've done on the mission field.
Because it's not about them.
Because it's not about them. It's about the working of God in another country and taking the gospel to people that really need to hear it.
Right.
And the cool part for me, and you can speak to this if you want to, but one of the things, all of them are going back.
Yes.
They're like, we're not done. I mean, this is awesome that we had a globe that's great, but we're going back.
I mean, think about that, Craig. So let's just do some simple math.
Yeah.
I mean, they got married at 20, right? They met in Bible college, the 3-year degree, whatever. That puts them at 70.
Yeah.
Well, most people are checking their 401ks.
Getting ready to retire. Yeah, sure.
And they're like, well, hey, thanks for the recognition, but we got a flight as soon as the restrictions open up.
We're going back.
We're going back.
Yeah,
like
I love
that's just a testimony that
yeah.
will go far beyond the walls of the field house.
Well, and I tell you something else that was cool this week. So Tuesday night, Brother Connor got to get up and give a 70-year presentation just about the mission office or BBFI missions in general, right? Showed a video, our Everywhere to Everywhere video that we show, and that gets updated every year or two. And but there was somebody kind of cool and special setting in the audience that he got to recognize, and that was Laverne Rogers.
Yeah.
So can we go back to Tuesday night for a second and just say how cool was it when he was asked to stand, and then he got that standing ovation for over 71 years
71, yeah.
in Japan. I mean, just what hits you when you were walking through that?
Humility. Just a. What do you say? What do you say to a guy who's in his mid-90s and it's like
who started his last church like 2 or 3 years ago at 91? It started another church in Japan at that age.
We have a woman in our church. I think she's 99 now, and she still drives. And obviously because of the virus, she's not attending church. But as soon as it's over, she's coming back. And I just thought about her as we're just recognizing him, and I'm like, man, to be found faithful.
Yeah.
Right. Just the legacy that you're going to leave.
Yeah, sure.
Like, and if you'd ask the brother what would you want on your tombstone or something like that, he'd say, a sinner saved by grace.
Yeah.
Just telling the gospel.
Yeah.
And so I hope that we all can walk away from Fellowship Week just reminded it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's about the Lord.
Yeah.
It's about the cause. It's about the Great Commission, the
people
harvest.
Coming to know Christ as Savior.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's about, right? As great as it is to see Laverne, as great as it is to honor those families for 60 years on the mission field. One other thing, Craig, is like in ministry, we have up and down days. Yeah.
Up and down weeks, up and down months.
Sure.
Whether it's a missionary or director
Across
or
the board, doesn't
pastor or
matter,
staff member. But to keep going.
Yeah.
As Paul wrote about, that we're supposed to just continue down that path.
Yeah.
Keep fighting, persevering. And I walked away thinking like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
May not be in Japan.
Yeah, you want to talk about an encouragement to keep going?
Yeah.
Those are encouragements. Every one of those are encouragements to keep going. And I love it because over the past several days, our Facebook page has put out pictures with their bios and their stories. So, if you haven't seen those yet, I want to encourage you to go to our Facebook page and go read the bios and go look at the pictures that show them receiving their Globe Awards for 50 years. But, one of the things that comes as kind of a natural byproduct of those presentations is it's not going to be too terribly long. I'm not going to say immediate, but we're going to need people to step in their shoes. Who's going to come behind them? Who's going to come in? And it was great to have missionaries approved. And I loved what one of our missionaries said. One of our young single lady missionaries that got approved last week. She said, "I cannot wait until I get my 50-year award."
And she's at least a second generation missionary,
yes.
third. I don't know.
Yes.
But the second thing I noticed as a sending pastor, after I was like, "This is awesome. We're going to recognize several 50-year recipients," is, wow, who's next?
Yeah.
Next man up. Like, because, of course, I'm a field rep, and I got to, it's numbers in, numbers out.
Yeah, sure.
Now, the beautiful thing is every single one of those missionaries, I believe, is going back.
Yeah.
Like, they're not
they're
retired.
They're all going back. That's right.
But the Sturwalds in our church, Randy's with the Lord, and Phyllis just decided that going back wasn't going to work. who's the next Randy and Phyllis Sturwald in my church?
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking for that couple immediately.
And I love that, because what would happen if every pastor had a goal of becoming a sending pastor? What if every church looked around their church and said, okay, who's next? How can we send them out? Who is it? Who can we pray for?
I can't think of why a pastor wouldn't do that.
It only makes sense.
It
right?
only makes
it's just part of ministry.
Read Paul,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Paul was, sometimes they split up because they got in fights, but he wrote later in his life that we're all on the same team. But Paul had, I think he names like 15 or 20 individual men that were faithful to the ministry, right? And those guys didn't stay with him in the prison.
Yeah.
They went out. I mean, he met the kid in prison, right? And what did he do? He said, "Hey, led him to Christ," and said, "Go make disciples.
Go and do it.
Go and do it.
Go and do the work."
So I think the example is there.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things, and really one of the big things that we launched back a few months ago as kind of a pre-launch leading up to this particular week, is this thing called Project 938, right? So we're gearing up for 938 Sunday, which is October 3rd. So it's Sunday, October 3rd. And the goal for that Sunday is to have all of our churches, both stateside and internationally, which is close to over 25,000 worldwide, counting U.S. and international. You have all of our missionaries, and the hope and the goal is to kind of capitalize on Jesus' prayer request in Matthew 9:38, right? Pray the Lord of the harvest, he'd send forth laborers into the harvest. And so Jesus gives us a prayer request in Matthew 9:38 to pray for more laborers. Yeah. And so Brother Connor and our directors have been working on this project since last July, right? I mean, something like this takes time to put together. I mean, there's a lot of different details and a lot of different things that have to come together to put something like this that's so globally reaching. Yeah. So we launched this last week, had a ton of great feedback. We're putting together all kinds of resources, getting that in the hands of our pastors. And so thinking about who's next and thinking about the missionaries that were approved and who's going to be approved in September and then next year, and then praying for those that God's already working on in their hearts to surrender to missions that will be approved in the years following that. Bringing all of that together around Project 938, where we're all coming together and praying for more missionaries. Talk to me about your response kind of to that. You heard a lot of information. You heard about the documentary that we put together for Marjorie Browning's life, a great resource that's coming out this fall for churches to use in their churches. And then that's just the first in a series of documentaries that we're going to do over the next several years as we walk our way through this 4 or 5 year plan for Project 938. And so setting through all of that, hearing it all in person on Missions Morning, kind of give me your reaction to that, your response to that, hearing all about all of that.
It kind of goes back to what I said in the very beginning about watching missionaries growing up. I kind of thought they were boring. It was long, push the button.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you look at this 938, you look at the professionalism, you look at the impact, the social media usage. That's not boring. That's exciting. At our church, we bring over the teenagers whenever we bring a missionary in on Wednesday night. And so there'll be more teenagers than there will be adults. Yeah. Because a lot of adults are working downstairs in Awana.
Yeah, sure.
So all these kids come in, probably
I love that.
50, 60,
that's awesome. Yeah.
And they'll have questions. They've never met a missionary.
Yeah.
And just some weird questions.
Yeah.
But then they'll want to go talk to the missionary. And it's very cool knowing that the kid that might be asking the question, his parents don't go to church. Yeah. He might not even be saved, but he's coming on Wednesday nights because his buddies are there.
Yeah.
And maybe he's the next missionary.
Yeah.
So we're praying for that young man or that young lady.
Yeah.
We're praying, but again, it goes back to you guys made it a priority to pray for more missionaries, but it's not just your problem. As a pastor, it's my problem too, that I need to be praying, but also doing something about it. So we are definitely going to be involved in the 938 project, have the Sunday to where we're just going to make it a fellowship-wide, worldwide event.
Yeah.
And maybe it pricks the heart of somebody in our church.
Yeah, and that's the prayer. The prayer is, the world is not getting smaller. I mean, there's more people on the earth right now than there's ever been, and it's growing rapidly. And the numbers, we were looking at them last week, the numbers are just exploding. But it seems like just across the board, regardless of what organization you're talking about, so many missionary numbers are going down.
Right.
And so, thinking through the whole 9:38 challenge, it's, set your alarm 9:38 in the morning, 9:38 at night. When that goes off, just pray. Follow Jesus' command and his prayer request to pray for more laborers. And so the hope and the prayer is that as we walk through this process, that we'll be praying between now and then we all come together on that one day to pray for more laborers.
This isn't a BBFI problem.
Right.
This is a local church problem, and but it starts with the pastor making missions a priority.
Okay, so what would you say to the pastor out here that not necessarily that they're on the fence on what do I get involved, do I not get involved, or maybe they've already made the decision, hey, yeah, we'll go ahead and do this. What would you say to them about the importance of being involved in Project 938? Just pastor to pastor, what would you say to them?
Well, since 938's brand new, I can't really say, hey, I've seen it, everything happen.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But one thing we've done that's very similar to this is my missions pastor has contacted missionaries that we support and said, we want a 2-minute shout out to Aurora Baptist Temple.
Yeah.
Grab your iPhone, flip it around if you can, if you're smart enough to do that, and just greet the people, tell the people what you're doing.
Yeah.
They send it to us through Dropbox or whatever. We throw it up on the screen 2 minutes on a Sunday morning, and it's just a greet from somebody. Dwayne Wright from Ethiopia did a shout out as he's walking into his church.
That's cool.
And so that right there is just a glimpse to the people of what 938 is.
Yeah.
So I think that will be another step toward making missions, again, the heartbeat of the fellowship. It always has been, but sometimes our hearts don't beat as fast as they should.
Sure.
And maybe this will be something that just reignites missions, and maybe that our fellowship can be the exception to the trend, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, it's not just us that are struggling.
Yeah.
Well,
and I love it because 938, praying for more laborers is not just missionaries.
Yeah.
It's more church planners.
Yeah.
It's more Sunday school teachers. It's more small group leaders. It's more youth pastors. It's more ministry people that are actively going out. It's more our church people going out to their neighbors and sharing their faith with people around them. And so this is so cross generational and cross. It doesn't matter what ministry philosophy you have. The style of music, none of that matters when it comes to this.
Sure.
This is something that we can all do, and we've all been commanded to do from Jesus.
If the church doesn't grow, us four no more, eventually those four are going to move on and then shut it down. 3,000 churches a year close in the States?
Yeah.
Think about that.
A crazy number.
And how do we keep that from not happening? Well, we get out there, we hit the pavement, we invite people on social media. We have such a opportunity with sending our church digitally right now. It's the future. It's the future, especially with the restrictions. So we can make disciples and reach people from our electronic devices.
Yeah.
At least make that first contact.
Oh, yeah. And it's incredible opportunities. And so, as we go through this process of 938, we're giving video resources. We're doing Bible studies for churches. We're doing a new Global Partners magazine that's specifically geared for church members all around Project 938. We've got so many different resources. And so I'm excited that you're going to be involved, that Aurora Baptist Temple is going to be involved. I can't wait. One of the things I'm most excited about on that day is because of the time zones. We have missionaries working in every time zone.
Oh, that's true.
We have churches working that are in every time zone around the world. So every hour of the day on October 3rd, there's going to be people all around the globe that are praying for more missionaries, more laborers just in general. And so I'm excited about that process, and I'm glad that you're going to be involved. I'm glad that Aurora is going to be able to be a part of that.
You guys have so many resources that probably pastors don't know about. And if you're watching this thing, you need to listen to me, whether it's missions conference themes or videos. Or guys, you need to use these resources that are available. The missions office does a phenomenal job of putting the missions knowledge and connection at our fingertips. We just got to use it. 938, I think, is going to be a blanket, just fire starter. I hope.
That's the prayer
for the fellowship, for the faith.
That's the prayer.
To God be the glory.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the resources and things, if you haven't seen them yet, I want to encourage you to go to our website, pbfimissions.com. And you can go over to the resources tab, and you can see a lot of resources, design packs, tile packs, videos. A lot of different resources are available for you in your church to use on a regular basis. But then also, I want to encourage you to go over to project938.world. That's the actual Project 938 website. So project938.world, and you're going to see, first off, if you haven't registered, you need to go on there and register, because when you register, you're going to get an informational packet that has tons of resources, videos, just a lot of different resources for you just in that first introduction packet. But you get it when you register, and you do that through our website. But then you can also keep tabs on that website as we go through this process, and you'll be able to see everything and stay up to date on everything that we're doing this entire process leading into 938 Sundays. So, man, Nathan, it's great to have you today. It's great just to visit with you. Obviously, you're a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We get to hang out some, and it's good to have you on here. Thanks for coming last week and not skipping out on missions morning to go do something else, but glad that you were there and able to be a part of this process. So, hey, listen, anything else? Last words before we sign off on the day.
Just, I hope that the pastors and the missionaries know how blessed they are to have the missions office. I don't get into the minutia about, well, this agency lets us do this or doesn't charge us this. I'm telling you, the concept that you have the opportunity as a pastor to tell your people that when you write a check for $100 to missions, that entire $100 is going to that missionary. There's no other group out there that does that.
Yeah.
There's no other group that has the connection.
It's pretty much unheard of. And so, and you know what allows us to do that is because churches support the mission office.
Exactly.
Just like they do with missionaries. And churches support our office. And so I want to encourage you, if you're considering a mission project to take on for support, consider taking on the mission office.
Yeah.
Because what happens with that is that's what allows us to do all of the services that we provide, to provide all those for our missionaries at no cost. And it's a really great thing to see. If you have more questions about the mission office, who we are, what we do, we've done some podcasts back towards the beginning of the 938 podcast. I want to encourage everyone to go watch those episodes. Go to our website, call us. Let us, if you're in Springfield, come in, go on a tour. Yeah. And we just want to be here to serve and equip our churches as they are out there working out the Great Commission among their communities, and then through their missionaries that they support around the world. So, Nathan, great to see you, man. Thanks for coming. Again, if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, you want to do that. Stay up to date on all of our future episodes here of the 938 podcast, and we will see you next week right back here on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock for the 938 podcast.